Hello, this is Marsha McClain, your professional assistant, and I am here with my mental health divas, Heather Hurd and Keisha Bryant. We are here to assist you during this difficult time. We're dealing with two pandemics, COVID-19, as well as a pandemic of I want to make sure I say the right word in protesting for the death and passing of George Floyd and other victims. So we're seeing a variety of people protesting, and we want to discuss those today. I will ask you please to like and share. And I understand you may not want to share everything on your timeline, but you can share them in your message, okay? Also, please be mindful that Facebook kind of plays around with the algorithm. So that's why I'm asking you to please share and like, okay? Do that for me. Please do that. I am a small business, and if it help you, I'm African American business. Come on, wink, wink. Come on, help us sister out today, okay? So we're gonna jump right in and get started. These are some sensitive topics, and we really want to take these seriously. And I want to start with Keisha Bryant and discussing some anything that she has noticed or dealt with in the last week that really hit home for her.
Yeah, I mean, I think this week has just been for me personally just a very heavy week. To be going through and kind of mourning the death of Mr. Floyd and just kind of some of the things that are going on in our country
Mhm.
on top of COVID has just been emotionally draining for me, family, friends, and all of my clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Heather,
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel the same way for, I guess, many different reasons. I think, you kind of said with COVID, it's, I don't know, week 50,000. I don't even really know what week it is, but it just feels like it's never ending. And then you add onto it all of the things going on in the world, specifically in Minneapolis.
yeah.
But Minneapolis is just sort of like the catalyst for us recalling everything that's going on, right? It's
Mhm.
not just about that. So it's been a heavy week. Yeah, I logged out. I actually logged out of Facebook. I was just telling you guys before that. I just took a pause on my page because I'm tired of reading and I needed to just focus and take a step back for myself.
Absolutely. It's been hard for me too. And I've been having headaches and not really wanting to talk to people because I'm tired of people asking me, "Are you okay?" And then when I'm telling them how they feel, they want to give their opinion when that's just the opportunity to just listen and kind of be done with it. And understand that our perceptions may be different. I'm not trying to disagree with you. And I hope you're not trying to disagree with me, but it's just a lot going on, the dynamics that we're living with, and we're going to respond differently. I'm experiencing that. My clients are experiencing that, as well as my family. I have a blended family. My grandson has Caucasian family members. His other grandmother's actually Caucasian. And we're having discussions on how do we raise this little 3-year old to love and embrace everybody when some parts of his family don't agree that he should have the same rights and opportunities as his Caucasian cousins. And it's kind of those difficult conversations that you got to have that, I didn't think I would have to have this day and age, but unfortunately I do. Yeah.
That
So let's
resonates.
Yeah, so because if you and I tell you now, if you don't have a blended family, your lifetime you probably will, and so you really need to have some insight in how you're going to be able to handle those type of things, and what are you going to say? Because sometimes, unfortunately, it will come straight down to race, and you just have to be prepared to have those conversations and be willing to kind of listen and find a balance. You're not going to know everything, and for you to just go by what you're dealing with and not consider that other person, I just think that maybe you may be closed-minded, and I would encourage you to open your mind, broaden your knowledge if possible. Would y'all like to add to any of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I have personally seen a shift this week
Mm-hmm.
of a segment of the population who might not have believed it. I think, given what happened in Minneapolis,
Okay.
you cannot deny, right? Like, I think
Yeah.
it's almost like an awakening that's going on in society right now of people
Mhm.
that may not have seen it because they haven't really been exposed to a whole bunch of Black people or people that look different than them. um People are actually saying, oh, okay, this thing is real. um
Shift this week.
Yeah. And
Yeah, I think I've seen that as well. It's sad though, because it's been real for 400 years, right? I mean, it's been real for a
right.
really long time. So the fact that someone had to film something for people to see to believe it is just, I don't know, it hurts.
it does. And then the fact that they just wanted to criticize the looting. Like George got attention for a couple of days, and then they focused on the looting. Now, I'm not saying what the people did was right by any means. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, look at all the things that happened before the looting. Look at all the no responses before the looting, before his death. And his death could have been stopped, if somebody would have reacted. And that's all you want to focus on. And I think sometimes white America, you focus there, but you didn't focus on the issues that happened beforehand, or at least gave some understanding to. And then you wonder why we're having these discussions like, okay, I understand the looting, but a man died.
Right.
And then you want to call him a thug and bring out his criminal record. Like, we're not aware of that. I don't care what his criminal record was. I really
Hmm.
don't. All I know is that this man died because a police officer who took an oath to protect and serve had his knee on his neck
Hmm.
and would not move, did not have any emotion.
Right. Right.
Exactly.
And then
Yeah,
what I'm go ahead,
it's
Keisha.
like the looting is an extreme behavior,
Yeah.
and I definitely don't agree with it. But guess what else is extreme behavior? Killing a man, right?
Right. Right. I mean, and it doesn't even equal. I mean, it's not even close to equaling. And that response, I don't know. I think that's just unfortunately deflection, defensiveness, and just the easy way to escape and kind of shift the blame to say, oh, well, look at the looting. Oh, look at this. Look at people are doing. Meanwhile, I mean, it's just like all crime, I guess. They can take a few bad examples and make it look like the norm when if you pull together all of the protests going around, there's probably a ton of really peaceful, meaningful protests, way more than the ones that turned into what they turned into. But nobody's reporting on those. Those are the ones that aren't getting the attention.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's just so sad. And I've seen and heard about families becoming divided, can't seem to reason or anything like that. And that's what troubles me. Like, where do we go from the protest? How do we get together from the protest? And especially if we're looking for leadership to help us. And unfortunately, we don't have that right now. Now, I was raised to respect the president and the office, okay? But in times of trouble and difficulty, I look to the president. And unfortunately, I'm not able to do that at this time with President Trump. I'm not able to do that. And anybody in his cabinet, Mike Pence, not able to do that. I'm looking at Chris Cuomo. I think that's his name. And he's on CNN, and his brother, you know, and his brother's a governor because they seem to kind of have a calm with them. And Roy Cooper. But normally I look at their high office for some type of calm and encouragement. And it's unfortunate that I'm not getting that. I'm not trying to be political or anything like that. I'm just being honest. Any of you all experiencing that, Keisha, Heather?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think if you look at my social media, it's no surprise how I feel about Trump.
Yeah.
And just his response or lack of response to this.
Mhm.
Um, so I will say it was nice to have President Obama speak
Yeah.
to the nation this week. It was very calming and needed, and I think you are right, Marshall. We need to be a little more methodical in
Yeah.
what's next, right? Like we have the attention, right? Like the
Hmm.
issue, there's light on the issue. What are our next steps to ensure lasting change?
Absolutely. What do you think, Heather?
No, I agree with you guys. I think, it is going to take, um, a very strategic approach as to what happens next, right? It's going to have to be well thought out. It's going to have to be actioned in a way that gets people's attention and gets momentum. And I think you're seeing that. You mentioned it prior to us getting on with millennials and
Yeah.
younger folks that are protesting together and protesting together across all genders, all nationalities, all races. Like, so I think we're going to have to lean in and hope that there's some millennials that are doing the right thing and getting it together, and then also start listening to the people that have been talking for a really long time that maybe some of us haven't tuned into or didn't know about. And we have nothing but time right now, so we can spend a lot of time educating ourselves. And I think that's the one thing that I know I'm trying to do and I feel like most of the time I'm pretty well rounded. But I mean,
Yes.
I also have to be able to understand and acknowledge and manage my own privilege and my own kind of maybe things I didn't realize were barriers or obstacles. So just opening your mind and your ears and listening and learning, like you said, being willing to hear. So just, yeah, I think there's so many groups that are posting really good resources in terms of, anti-racist authors, blogs to follow, podcasts to follow, and now's the time. Like, you've got free time. You're not chained to a schedule, right? So I think that's one good thing to do. And I think trusting that the folks that are organizing these protests are kind of thinking through next steps. But it's going to take a lot of work, right?
I agree with you. I think it's going to take a lot of work, but I'm encouraged that we're going to kind of get there. Yes, I was shocked at how the millennials are like, like we're tired of this. Forget the talking. Let's protest. Let's shout and get attention, and that's what they did. And because of them, I think that's why these arrests happen. And I'm so grateful to them. Now they had me concerned a little while ago, and I put in here where they were eating, those Tide Pods about 10 years ago and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know about this generation, but they're doing things that unfortunately my generation talked about a little bit more and there was no action. But the thing that I am concerned about is that the police are still not listening. If you saw, I don't know if you all saw on the news where the police knocked down a 75-year-old man. He was in serious condition. 2 officers got suspended or fired, and 57 officers left that division. I don't understand that. Why was it okay to push him down? It looked like he was asking a question. Somebody said, get out the way, and they pushed him. Why was that okay? I understand you want to support your brothers in the force, but can you not hold them accountable? Like, look, that was wrong. You have to push that man down. I understand this is intensive. We're in distress right now, but you didn't have to do that. And then, like, 4 rows of you walked over the man, like walked past him. Nobody even tried to say, do you need anything? Are you okay? I don't understand that. And that's what makes me nervous about the police. Are you listening about your actions and how people are viewing them and why?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a concern, right? Like, I'm not naive enough to think that all police officers are bad, right?
Yes, absolutely.
But just like I know in therapy, right? Like, there's some people who that are therapists that their calling is not therapy, right? Like, they may not be the best therapists. And I think because of that, we have our board, right? We have our boards, we have our code of ethics to kind of keep check on that. And I think a lot of training has to be done to, because this thing is systematic, right? Like, I think we all saw the officers that were arrested for Mr. Floyd's death.
Yes.
2 of them were people of color, right? Like,
yes.
So this isn't really just I believe this isn't just like a white black issue. This is a systematic thing. And I think it's not enough to be nice and kind, right? Like, I think we really have to start being anti-racist. We have to be willing to call out, to your coworkers and say, hey, I saw you use too much force on that last stop. Like, let's talk about this. So I'm just, I'm glad that it's kind of shifted to anti-racism, but I hope it's not a trend. And I hope that people up top are really making policies that trickle down. And I will say this, like having gone through diversity training and anti-racism training when working with a prior agency, diversity training is one day. Anti-racism is like a lifestyle, right? Like it's a at least 2 3 weeks long training, reading books, talking to people. So I really hope that these institutions move in that direction, especially
Yeah.
police departments.
Our pastor talked this morning about like having a belief versus having a way, and that really hits home with me because
Mhm.
it's okay to have a belief, right? But unless you're acting on it and you're living it, it's really not anything. Like I can believe that I think all people are equal, but unless I'm acting from that kind of mind space or my actions are supporting that, it means nothing. And so, I was telling Marcia the other day that I started, I guess about a month ago, our church just did an interview with an author, Lisa Sharon Harper, who runs Freedom Road and a couple other organizations. And she's a Christian social activist, but she has a lot of information on um, the structure of the gospel and how it's designed for white people and sort of changed how,
Oh.
the colonized Jesus, made him a white person, all of these things. And so I really got interested in her work and just sort of started following her ever since that interview and looking
Mhm.
around at what she's doing. But I really kind of think that anyone who wants to understand the systemic nature of racism needs to read her information. She starts from like 1619, where that was where the seed was planted. That is where we decided that there was a hierarchy and whites were at the top. And
Mhm.
so she talks too about all the pivotal moments in history where we could have taken another path and we kept on the same path and entrenching those ideas and entrenching those beliefs. And some of them are even just so deep we don't even realize they're in us. Um, I really, really have enjoyed her work that I've watched, her podcast that I've watched. I ordered her book, her first book, because she said that's where to start. So, I think that's the work that white people have to do right now is not just say, well, I'm not racist, but really understand how racism got started in this country and how it's still so ingrained in everything we do. Um, it's just it's very eye
Absolutely.
opening when you kind of sit down and you think through not just individual situations, but the whole history of it and where it began.
Absolutely. And I don't think I'm always cautious when anybody say I'm not racist because I think we all have some issues that we can work out and resolve. And especially if we have a mindset, regardless, if we think that we are better than someone or having a, like we're higher than someone, you have some issues and that's where you start working because that may show in jobs, that may show in how you react to your neighbors. How do you feel when other ethnic groups move into your neighborhood? How do you
Mhm.
feel when they disagree about something? Those are ways that can give you some insight into how you are going to respond or how you are responding in ways to improve, just like that does for me as well. That goes, I have to be accountable also. But when you just say, I'm not racist, that lets me know you have a closed door, a closed mind, and you don't really want to change because you're not racist.
Right. Oh, like when
That's
you say
wise
I
to
have
tell
I have
yourself.
black friends, I have gay friends. Oh, I
Yeah.
accept everybody. Well, why do you have to tell me that? Your belief is one thing, the way you act should be another. I should see who you are by the way you act. That's what I should see. And I think
Mhm.
that's the difference because if you don't see that, then I have to tell you. And when I have to tell you, I don't really like, is it real if I'm telling you, oh, I treat all people the same. If I have to say that, there's something wrong with me probably. I'm probably not really doing that.
That's right. And I'm glad that you said that because like I said, we got to hold each other accountable and
Mhm.
be able to change the community for ourselves and for that next generation coming up behind us so that we can treat each other like human, like you would want somebody to treat you. And that was so disgusting to watch. Watching that man die like that, I had nightmares. I couldn't sleep. My head was hurting. And then it took that for jobs and corporations to start asking, well, how are you all doing? And all these things. This has been happening for years. And then me, I'd be nervous to say anything because I don't want to be seen as an angry Black person. Because, even though I'm a smiley, easygoing person, because I talk with my hands and I get loud at times. And I have to catch myself because I don't want to be judged because of that.
Yeah, you and I had a good conversation about that the other day. I thought
Mm-hmm.
there was a podcast or a Facebook Live between Lisa and Jen Hatmaker. And Jen Hatmaker, for anyone who doesn't know, is a Christian author out of Texas. She's written a ton of books. She's so funny, but so serious and so right on.
Mm-hmm.
And she has 4 children, 2 are adopted and 2 are Black, and so she does a lot of social activist work as well. And they had a podcast called White Women's Toxic Tears, and it was just about how, like, the history for white women, our power has been sex and tears, and we've used those
Oh,
things like
wow.
as long as we could, and we hold on to them. And Marsha and I were talking about how, just the little tiny things that maybe people don't realize, when your Black coworker gets loud and then you go cry to HR, who gets in trouble? And all of these kind of really real examples of how our privilege and how we use our race as a kind of bargaining chip in situations,
Mm-hmm.
whether
Mhm.
intentional or not. It's still part of the system of racism that we're talking about, and needs to be we need to be done with it. Like,
Yeah,
just like we're saying, there's more to women, right, than tears and sex. I mean, I think we can all agree on that.
absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
And maybe we need to stop thinking that that's all we're made of, and realize we're made of a lot more. And I think, this is a good time for, I think for women to kind of really own this as well, and to step up and help this movement move forward. I mean, we talk about the millennials, but I think young women are going to be in a point to kind of rise up a little bit and show a little power.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And
I
I
hope
thank you
so
so much
anyway.
for sharing. I thank you so much for sharing what you said about, acknowledging that, kind of be careful how your reaction may affect somebody else, even though you may not mean it that way. That's kind of what happens. And one thing that I found out that I was unaware of, say for instance, you are wanting to adopt a child. I didn't realize this probably until, I want to say, a few months ago, that African American babies you can get an African American baby for like $10,000 less than a Caucasian baby. Why is that? If a family wants a baby, why is it like priced like that?
Why does it even
And that,
cost to get a baby?
yes, why
I
does
mean,
it even
That's the
cost?
question.
like, if
Yes,
someone
but it
wants to
made me
adopt a baby who
stop.
needs love, why does it
Absolutely.
cost?
And I was like, why is that? Why? So I'm just saying all of these little things and these,
But there's that hierarchy. We're putting a price on human life. And here we are
yes,
categorizing price by race. Like, really?
Mm.
yes,
Oh,
yes,
that's disturbing I mean, it makes you sick. Like,
yes,
those are the kind of things that are so deeply entrenched in our society that people need to start educating themselves so that they can undo them. You're not going to be able to undo them if you don't understand them and you just think, oh, it's that situation because the police officer. It's that situation because of the woman in the park. Like, we didn't even talk about Amy Cooper, but the woman in the park in Central Park using her tears and her privilege and making up a complete and utter lie to get that man out of Central Park and she was the one who was wrong. Like, she was the one doing wrong. Um, so in order to get kind of like past those things, we have to not pass to move forward, really. We have
yeah,
to understand
Mhm.
them to dismantle them. You can't dismantle anything if you don't understand it, right? Like, the bomb squad doesn't go in to undo a bomb just willy-nilly. They think through it. So I think, we're going to have to, like, think through what's next and how do we dismantle this.
Yeah, and you
yeah,
have to be willing to like educate yourself on it too, right? Even though I'm Black and I've been Black my whole life, right? Like I still learn, right? Like when I watched the documentary 13th on Netflix that Ava DuVernay did, right? Like just learning how the criminal justice system really was modeled after slavery, right? And so you really have to be willing to seek out information that will not that probably will make you uncomfortable. And sit with that and really put your biases aside and think logically and humane through this new information that's being presented to you, right? Like not trying to put your own slant on it when you see it.
I like that, Keisha. And I think 13, I'm gonna make sure to put that. That was a really good documentary. And it also talked about Bill Clinton in that one, correct? Is that the one that talked about Bill Clinton, Keisha?
Maybe.
About the
Like it was
prison
like a
system?
year and a half ago. Yes.
Oh, it was talking about the prison system. To African Americans, Bill Clinton was our first black president. But then when we looked at all the things that he put in place in the prison system, was just horrid, just terrible. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he was the one that had the laws. If you had crack cocaine, you got more time. If you had time
Then
for the crack than the
cocaine.
powder, yeah. So he was the one who did these things. So being mindful of why is that? Was it because Black America were the ones that were using crack cocaine versus powder cocaine? You just kind of never know. So when I'm thinking about what can we do moving forward in North Carolina, because we are all based in North Carolina, we have the crisis intervention team. Like when we have to deal with a mental health issue, we go out with officers that have been trained with crisis intervention. And I'm wondering, could those trainings also be with diversity, maybe quarterly? Talk about any biases you have, talk about if you have some anger issues. Let's get to the root of it so that you can be a wonderful police officer and somebody will reach out to you. I had a police officer tell me, he told me how he had handcuffed the guy because he looked like he was going to be violent. Come to find out, the man was deaf. Then the way he talked was with his hands. And he said that really, really helped me as a police officer, because of what I was thinking, I was judging this person wrongly, and he couldn't communicate, and I cut off his only source of communication. And that changed him, that one interaction. So I'm just wondering, could you do something like that, like we have to do for crisis intervention? Would you be willing to do that? Just like if you have to work the juvenile officers at the high schools, would you be willing to get trained just so that you can have a better perspective on the people that you're policing and servicing also?
I
I
mean,
mean,
I think it should be mandatory.
yeah, you should, and you should want to. I mean, you should want
Right.
to. I don't do when I do therapy, I don't just think I can serve everybody. I have to
Mhm.
do education on the diagnosis, on the culture, on all of the aspects that might influence my work with that person. Um, I think those folks should have to do that. Like that should just be a no-brainer.
Why do you think the police are resisting doing that? I don't think it's the police. I think it's their unions. Like all of these police brutality cases they're funded by the union. And I'm wondering, are their unions similar to like when people were bad teachers and they had these teachers for years and years and years, even though they were not good teachers, not producing anything, but the union was behind them? How do we defund these unions or go in there and infiltrate them to give them better information to give us greater officers? What do you think about that? Do you know what I'm talking about when I talk about how the unions, uh, now maybe not here in the South, but up north,
Yeah,
they had unions and they kept teachers for 10, 15 years, even though they were failing as a teacher, but the
right,
union was behind them, so they never lost their job. And so
right.
I'm wondering if the union with the police said, if somebody infiltrated those, if somebody talked to them, maybe we can kind of see it a little different, help them see the benefit, and that it's not that we're trying to say you're doing this horrible job, but we want to get you from this base level to a greater level. That's all we're trying to do. And I'm wondering if we could kind of get ways to kind of communicate that to them and see what they think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it. I'm crazy enough to believe that it starts with like local politics. Um, and like
I agree.
holding people accountable, right? Like
Mhm.
whenever you want change, who do you find? You find the person who
Mhm.
controls the pocketbook, because that's who has power. And since I've policing and education and all these other prison, all of these things are funded by taxpayer dollars. I think that's where we have to start. Because here's
Absolutely.
the thing we know about systems, and we're social workers and therapists
Yeah.
and counselors. Systems don't like change, right? Like
Yes.
systems will fight whatever change you do, and so I personally think it has to be connected to the dollars.
I like that, Keisha. Systems do not like change. That is the truth. And but they don't like when people mess with their dollar. So definitely, if we can hit them in the wallet, for them to listen. But I am very proud of Roy Cooper. What he said. I think some of the statements he said about the protesters. I was very thankful for what he said. I know a lot of people did not agree with him, but I was thankful for what he said. And I'm going to look it up online so I can put it in the chat. I don't know exactly word for word, but I just want to make sure I have it in the chat for you all to know what the governor of North Carolina was stating about his support for the for reform and the protesters. I would like to, while I'm looking this up, I would like to get to Amy Cooper. I wasn't even going to bring her up, but but I'm
Sorry.
glad that you
Sorry, not sorry, right?
I'm glad that you brought her up because I actually for a moment felt like felt bad for her when her I thought her apology was very sincere until she said this had ruined my life. So she put it back on her. I'm still the victim. I'm still being traumatized. I'm still being affected by this. But she didn't take ownership of you are the reason that you lost your job. Your actions are the reason that people are scrutinizing you now. She didn't take ownership of any of that. Because when you threw that butt and it ruined my life, that was it for me.
She was never a victim. She played a victim card that she
Yes.
could call, that she could use because she had the right makeup to use it. And that's a big problem. That's deep in society that she felt comfortable enough to do that.
Yeah.
And I mean, bless everything that happened that it didn't escalate and he got arrested because we wouldn't be talking about the same story. It would have gone down a path that we've seen happen way too many times. So I think that's another reason, maybe Keisha, why you're seeing people go, wow, it is real. Because that was a real example of a white person acting like I mean, I hesitate to use the word idiot, but because that's not even nice or even strong enough, right? It's not even strong enough, but it's someone who used a position and just lied, just downright lied, knew nothing about this person, but saw that they were black and saw that they could call the police and call something that it wasn't. And thank goodness that he was filming it. He was able to get away when he did because she would have been believed. That's the sad part. She would have been believed if all of those things weren't in place. And that's really sad because in order for anyone to believe it, it has to be on film because it was his word
Yeah.
versus hers.
Right.
It's just
Yeah.
it's not right. And those are the situations that, gosh, I mean, I'd even want to wonder how she even came, how did you even think to do that? Like never in my 41 years would I think I know I'm 42 actually. Never, right, Marcia? I'm 42. Never in
I think so.
I still think I'm 41. Never in my 42 years would I ever think that that's what I should do in a situation like that. So, wherever she came up with that wrong, it is wrong on so many levels, but that's a glaring example of what is real in the everyday life of African American men, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that white
Mhm.
women can do that to them. It's not right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Keisha, do
that
you have
was
anything to
tough
add?
to. Yeah, that was tough to watch. But honestly, like I wasn't surprised, right, that it went down and that it went down that way. And like my mind just went back to like Emmett Till and all the other
That's exactly if
African
you
American
gotta
guys.
listen to. Did you listen to White Women's Toxic Tears? Because you gotta
No,
listen
I
to
hadn't
it.
even heard of it, but
Okay,
I'll
well, you gotta
definitely.
listen to that because they talk about
It's in the
that. And
chat. I'll
Lisa
put it in
Sharon
the chat.
Harper goes back to Emmett Till in that situation and how, this is what we've been doing, white women. We've been using these tears to get out of, situations with our children doing things that they shouldn't do at school against other children.
Yes.
Yeah, for lots of situations. So I think, yeah, if you haven't, it's so good. Watch the June 1st one though, because they had technical difficulties on the Friday one, and you could only hear one side of the conversation. But then they got it together and they redid it on June 1st, and it's hands
And
down.
I'll put it in the chat also.
All right,
Okay.
you do that.
Okay. I think this is a wonderful conversation. Is there anything that either one of you all would like to add or want us to discuss before? I didn't want to, I didn't want it too long because I didn't want people to get really emotional. I just want them to kind of think and go a little bit lower than the surface. But is there anything you all want to discuss or want people to be aware of as they're moving forward with open eyes?
One thing that I did want to bring up is talking to so when discussing these things, I want to ask white people to please do your own research and don't necessarily go to your black friend or your gay friend or your like for
Like that.
to educate you, right? Because it is exhausting. It is exhausting work to try to educate somebody on something. Like it almost feels like you're teaching somebody's physics, right? Because it's like if you've never really seen it, if you don't know, you're having to learn language and just a whole new way of thinking. And I mean, I think it's one thing if your friends want to engage in a discussion, but I just want to say to white people, there's like luckily now there's tons of podcasts and books, and I've even seen
Yes.
some like book clubs that are coming together um to really dismantle racism. So I definitely want to educate people on those, and then also to the people who feel othered, like rest, take some time because this is exhausting, and don't be afraid to tell your friends, actually I don't want to talk about this, but here's a great book on this subject.
Okay.
I agree completely with you. I think it's rude, in my opinion, to ask someone to be like the spokesperson for their race, gender, sexual orientation, whatever. Like, it's rude. Do your work. I mean, we have Google now. It could never be easier to
Mhm.
get information, right? It's not like you have to go to the library that's not open to check out a book. You can get one. So, yeah, do your own work. And I think even further for me as a parent, like it's becoming even more obvious to me how much work I have to do in my own home to make sure, like, I think my kids are generally really good kids, but what are they picking up on that I'm not knowing that they're picking up on, and having real conversations. We took them to a protest, um, and it was a really good family friendly one, and I was glad. I'm also glad that the police officers that were there marched with us, thanked us, talked to us, handed
Okay.
out water. But I don't think
Mhm.
that's the norm. I think that's because I'm in Cary, North Carolina. And I can be honest about that because that's not what would happen if I was marching with them in like Alabama or
DC.
somewhere,
Yeah.
yeah, or DC, or it wasn't the same experience, and I can be honest about that. So I need to talk to them about the opposite experiences that people are having. Um, so I think, yeah, educate yourself and educate your family and your kids. We owe it to the world because honestly, this is what do you want your kids to grow up in? I don't know. It's just I go back to my faith a lot because we're all made in the image of God, and I think like, how could you hate anyone then? How could you do this to people if that's what you believe? And so the Christians that are supporting these things, it's just I have so many like just disgruntled thoughts about it that I can't even put into words.
Absolutely.
And so yeah, there are good books even for kids. I think there's some good movies. I don't know, maybe you guys know. I haven't watched Just Mercy yet, but I want to watch it. It's PG-13. I don't know if my 12-year-old can handle it, but I'm going to preview it first. I don't know, maybe someone else knows if they should. If you do know if a 12-year-old can watch it, put it in the chat.
I think they could watch it, but they be prepared to have some discussion around it, and that is leading into some questions we have. I have Katie wants to know, what are your ladies' thoughts as social workers on how to talk to our kids about this, and also Linda McLean Young had about the same question. Real combos need to be had with your children. So, what would you say to these two ladies?
I mean, I don't see kids, so that's so I will lead with that. I honestly think the best intervention for kids is to interact with people who are different than them, right? And for them to see you, right? Like, when's the last time you've had a Black person at your house? Like, when's the last time, you've eaten a food that's not like American? So I think definitely exposure is big. And like with my daughter, I've been just trying to expose her to different Barbies and different books, and um just take her out of a monolithic kind of place. But Heather, I
Yeah.
know you're good with the kids, so I'll let you
I think it
answer.
depends on their age, like you said, but I think, if you again if you Googled anti-racist books for children, you're going to come up with a ton of like even little ones. I mean, didn't Sesame Street even do a town hall yesterday on
They
this?
did on
Right?
CNN.
So, the actual the protest that we took our children to was called Peaceful Fights for Equal Rights, which is actually a book for little kids. They read it to the kids before we marched around Cary. So there are little kid books, and then I think that there are bigger kid ideas, right? I think we have to talk about history. I don't think we can ignore it. Um, I think you dip your toe into current events with kids and you talk about them and you ask them for what they think about it before you tell them what you think about it. Because they may already be thinking good. They already might be on the track you want them to be on in terms of their thoughts, but you might have to kind of have the conversations. I don't think you can hide it. I mean, I think hiding it has been the fault a fault for a long time. Like I was saying this to my husband the other night. I said, I turned off Facebook because I was struggling, and I said, I wonder if what kept my parents up at night raising me. And I don't think the answers are the same. And I talked to a few different friends, and they're like, but the things were always there, but we didn't know, we didn't see it. Now we see it. I think that also people knew about it, but they didn't talk about it. They just kind of swept it to the side. And I think that doing that is harmful. So being honest about what's happening, but being honest with yourself about what your kid's ready to hear, I think is kind of it's a fine balance. But I think if you shelter them from conversations like this, it's just causing more harm in the long run.
Sure.
I don't know if
Absolutely.
that's a good enough
That was
answer.
I think that was a wonderful
Thank you.
answer. I like what Keisha said too. Be diverse and and help your kids to see that, so they're used to it already. So when somebody do come over, it's not like, well, what do they want? Like it's something
Right.
wrong because they're so used to it. They're like, I
Right.
know my mom's diverse, and we're gonna kind of ask these questions. Be able to ask questions or realize this is wrong, regardless of whoever it is, and I can come home and talk to mom and dad about it.
Right.
Or if they ask you, what is racism, or what does that mean? What's a conflict? Be prepared to answer. Be prepared to educate yourself so you'll have a good answer. And I know my son, I was fortunate enough when he was in school, when he was first starting daycare, I should say, he went to a school where there were special needs kids also. And so the
Mhm.
reason I did that was so now when he sees somebody that's special needs, he don't stare at them. He may go up and say, hey, or something like that, how you doing, or whatever, because he's already had that exposure. So I really like that. But Heather, I really love already having those marches with kids, letting them know what the purpose is, and telling them about the Sesame Street town halls and those type of things, so that they'll be aware and be able to have some good conversation. Heather, we are being asked in the chat, they want to know the name of the book that was read to the kids. If you remember, if you can let me know so I can put it in the chat,
Yeah,
they want to know that.
it's
Ladies, I appreciate everybody that's asking these really good questions and making these comments. It's really beneficial, and we do appreciate it. Any other questions? Because we're going to wrap up in a little bit, but I do want to also talk about. I don't want to talk about him really, but we already talked about Donald Trump, right? President Trump.
yeah,
Okay,
we can move
okay,
on.
we're past it. But I
I
do
know
want to give a
elections are in
Right.
149 days.
Well, and
okay,
that's another
thank
thing
you.
that we missed. You did talk about politics, but vote. Get out and vote.
Yeah,
That is a bargaining chip right there, and exercise that power.
yes, absolutely. Make sure that you vote, and not just vote for the president. Like Keisha was saying, vote
Local.
locally. Do local change. Let people know that you're there, that you want your voices heard. Do that. Do that for yourself and for your children, okay?
Mhm.
But I just want to give shout out to the mayor in DC. Oh my gosh, she gave me life when I saw Black Lives Matter sign. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I felt good all day. I was like, oh my God, did y'all see that? And I am in a small town in North Carolina in the Holly Springs. And I did see signs up everywhere, even here, that was saying Black Lives Matter. So I'm glad that the conversation is changing, that we're able to kind of have some dialogue. And it's not just happening to the, Black America, it's also happening to other minorities like Latinos, the LGBT community. So we can all kind of take a stand for all of these communities and do the right thing so that we can kind of remember the generations that are coming up behind us. Ladies, do y'all have any want to say any last remarks or anything like that?
I think we got it. I think we covered
Okay,
what you wanted to cover.
absolutely. I just want to say before we end, just look at the three of us able to come and have a good conversation. We may not agree on every point, but we were able to get our point across, talk and share, and get some information. I want for you to leave with that. You don't have to agree with everything somebody is saying, but just listen, give your feedback, and have a good conversation. Allow your children to see that also, that you can disagree with somebody and still be respectful. I think that is an amazing thing to have. And like I said, I'm glad that we came together. And I'm gonna put Heather on the spot. I really love Heather, and I'm glad I asked her. I said, "Do you feel comfortable coming on?" And she was like, "Yeah, I feel comfortable. People need to know what's going on." Cause she could have said, "No, not this time, Marsha. I'll take a bow. I'll get with you the next time," and she didn't do that. And Keisha, with her willingness always to say, "Yes, I think I have some insight and opinion to continue on this conversation, because we started out about COVID, and now we're moving on into other subjects." And I just want to give them a shout out. They say give people their flowers while they're here to enjoy them, that they're always willing to assist me with conversation to help our target audience, just to make sure that you're having some information and support out there from professional women that are actually working in the field and can assist you with intelligent, articulated answers. I really appreciate that. And we will
Thank you.
be
Thank you.
conversing a little bit later on. Now, I want to let you all know, to next week, I will have a group of men on. June is actually Men's Health Month. I hope I'm saying that right. And Father's Day is in June. So I'm going to have a group of men on discussing the racial divide next week, but also talking about men's health, depression in men, and those type of things. And I'm going to have a diverse group of guys coming to talk. And so I will ask you to stay tuned for that. I don't see any other chats I don't see any more questions in the chats. So I'm going to close it right there. Sherry Core said, great conversation, ladies. I'm going to show her where she's saying great conversations, and she's saying thank you for the conversation. And we just want to say thank you so much for taking time to tune in, ladies. I want you to know that we had about 100 people strong and that was listening to us while we were having this discussion. So I just want to thank you all, our audience. We really do appreciate you for taking time out of your Sunday to spend with us. And I would just leave you. May the best belong to you. Make this a wonderful week. Impact where you can, and know that it's okay if you need to take some time off of Facebook, cut off your phone, and just de-stress and do some self-care. Double down, like Keisha has said in the past. All right, may the best belong to you. You all take care. Until next time.